The Krolvian ambassador's security detail stood at attention, their exoskeletons humming with lethal efficiency. Plasma rifles charged, energy shields flickering, sensors sweeping every shadow of the diplomatic compound for threats. They were the finest warriors the Galactic Council could produce, genetically enhanced, cybernetically augmented, trained from birth to protect the powerful. And they were all staring at a human in flannel pajamas. Dr. Marcus Webb shuffled down the corridor of the Xenobiological Research Station, a cup of coffee in one hand and a datapad in the other. His slippers made soft scuffing sounds against the metal floor. Behind him, padding on massive paws, followed two Ralkathi cubs, each the size of an earth tiger, their obsidian scales gleaming under the station's lights. The Krolvian guards tensed. One raised his weapon. "Stand down," Commander Thexler hissed through his translator, though his own hand hadn't left his sidearm. The Ralkathi were apex predators from a death world. Their adult forms had conquered half a sector before the Council had negotiated an uneasy peace. Their young were barely less dangerous, instinct-driven killers with reflexes that could dismember an armored soldier before their neurons finished firing. And this human wore pajamas around them. "Morning, fellas," Marcus said, nodding to the guards as he passed. One of the cubs chirped, a sound like grinding metal, and nuzzled against his leg. He absently scratched behind its auditory ridge. The creature's tail, tipped with bone spikes that could pierce durasteel, wagged contentedly. The guards watched in horrified silence as the human and his lethal companions disappeared around a corner. "How?" one of the younger Krolvians whispered. "How does he survive?" Commander Thexlar had no answer. He'd been asking himself the same question for 3 station cycles. The incident that had brought Dr. Webb to the Council's attention happened during a routine inspection. Ambassador Vryn of Keltor, surrounded by his 12-guard detail, had arrived to evaluate the Xenobiological Research Program. The Ralkathi cubs, then only 2 months old but already formidable, were kept in a reinforced containment unit that could withstand a starship's weapons fire. They found the cell empty and the door open. Alarms shrieked. Guards formed tactical formations. The ambassador was evacuated to his ship while security teams swept the station, expecting to find corpses. The Ralkathi, even as juveniles, had never been successfully contained by any species. Escape attempts always ended in bloodshed. They found the cubs in the human habitat section. Specifically, they found them curled up on Marcus Webb's bed while the human sat cross-legged on the floor, reading them a story from his datapad. One cub had its head in his lap. The other was chewing on his pillow. "Oh, hey," Marcus had said when the armed response team burst through his door. "I was wondering when someone would notice. The little guys were stressed, so I brought them here to calm down. The containment unit's too clinical. No enrichment, no social interaction. They're pack animals, you know. They need comfort." The lead security officer, a Thulian with 3 eyes and military decorations from 7 wars, had stared at the scene. The cubs, capable of registering any living being as either pack or prey, looked utterly relaxed. One was purring, a sound like a diesel engine. "How?" the officer managed. "Are you still alive?" Marcus shrugged. "I read the behavioral studies. They respond to confident, calm energy. Plus I've got treats." He held up something that looked like dried meat. "Synthesized Ralkathi game bird. They love it." Word spread through the Galactic Council like wildfire. Humans, the newest species to achieve interstellar travel, possessed no natural armor, no venom, no enhanced strength. They were soft, slow, and remarkably fragile. Yet this one had tamed creatures that had resisted every attempt at domestication for millennia. Researchers arrived from across the galaxy to study the phenomenon. They filled volumes with observations. Dr. Webb maintained no defensive posture. He established what he called boundaries, but enforced them with nothing more than vocal correction and withdrawn attention. When a cub bit too hard during play, he would simply say no, cease interaction, and turn away. Within days, the biting stopped. He introduced enrichment, puzzles, games, novel experiences. The cubs, which had been classified as unintelligent killing machines, began solving complex problems for rewards. They learned dozens of commands in human standard language. Most remarkably, he slept beside them. Every night cycle, Marcus would settle into his bunk and the cubs would arrange themselves around him. Predators that could kill with a casual swipe of their claws would tuck their heads under his arms and sleep peacefully through the night, Once, a researcher monitored his vital signs during sleep. They showed no stress, no elevated cortisol. The man trusted the creatures completely. The cubs, in turn, became fiercely protective of him. When a Krovian guard accidentally startled Marcus in a corridor, both cubs placed themselves between the human and the perceived threat, scales raised, growls rumbling from their chests. They didn't attack. Marcus had taught them restraint, but their message was clear. The guard backed away slowly, his battle suit suddenly feeling very inadequate. 6 months later, the Rakathi High Council requested an audience. The station prepared for the worst. The species was notoriously aggressive, and the council had never initiated diplomatic contact before. The Rakathi delegation arrived in warships that made the station's defenses look like children's toys. Their leader, High Matriarch Kesavara, stood 3 meters tall, her scales battle-scarred, her eyes containing the cold assessment of a creature that had survived 1,000 fights. She was brought to the research wing. Guards lined every corridor, though everyone knew they would be irrelevant if violence erupted. High Matriarch Kesavara found Dr. Marcus Webb in his quarters, still wearing pajamas, teaching the cubs to play fetch with a magnetic ball. When he saw her, he stood and bowed respectfully. The cubs recognized her scent and chirped in greeting, but didn't leave Marcus's side. The matriarch stared at the scene for a long moment. Then, to everyone's shock, she lowered her head, a gesture of respect rarely given to any species, never to an alien. "You have done what we thought impossible," she said, her voice like grinding stone. "You have shown our young kindness without weakness, discipline without cruelty. You have given them what we in our strength could not, peace." Marcus smiled. "They're good kids, just needed someone to believe in them." The matriarch's expression was unreadable. "The council has debated your kind since you arrived among the stars. We wondered what made humans dangerous, what weapon you would reveal. Now we understand." She gestured at the cubs, content and calm. "You do not conquer with strength. You conquer with trust. And that," she said, "is more terrifying than any weapon we have ever faced." The diplomatic treaty that followed changed the balance of power in 3 sectors. The Ralkathi, who had been enemies of the council for generations, agreed to peace negotiations with one condition. Dr. Marcus Webb, the human in pajamas, would oversee the cultural exchange program. Outside his quarters, the Krovian guard still stood in full battle armor, weapons ready. Inside, a human slept peacefully, flanked by predators who would die to protect him. And across the galaxy, other species began to wonder, if humans could do this with trust and pajamas, what else were they capable of?